Hello, and welcome to How to Triple Your Website Traffic by Revitalizing Your Company Blog, presented by WebAscender. I'm Stephanie, and I'm here with Samantha.
Hey everyone, so glad you could join us.
And we are going to be your hosts today for this webinar. If at any time during our conversation today you have questions, you can feel free to tweet us at #TripleYourTraffic. If you're not on Twitter, you can also email us at im@webascender.com. We'll be monitoring both of those throughout the webinar today, so ask questions when you have them, and then there will also be a time at the end for some Q&A as well. So we'll try and answer your questions as we go, but if we don't, we'll get to them at the end. So to get started today, in order to triple your website traffic with a blog, we need to understand what a blog actually is. So what is blogging? Blogging originally, back in the old days of the internet, used to be personal accounts of people's lives, stories that they would share online. Some of this still exists today, primarily in the version of a cat blog, but blogging, people will often blog about stories. That still happens. In addition to that, though, blogging has really evolved to be any place that you are regularly publishing or publishing and promoting new content. So businesses use blogs to publish content today and to drive new traffic as well. Blogging isn't just for your cat blog anymore. It's actually a key component to attracting new website visitors into your website so that you can convert those into leads and turn them into customers. Now that we know why, what blogging is, we also want to know why blogging is important. And to understand that, we need to take a bit of a step back and look at the overall internet marketing as a strategy and how that works. So if you joined us for our last webinar, Inbound Marketing 101, this graphic here will look familiar. If not, that's fine. I'm going to talk through it now. So with internet marketing, really the goal is to attract new people out there to your website. We often call those strangers on the internet that we want to bring in. Once they get to your website, they're then a visitor who we can convert into a lead or an identifiable person that you can continue to nurture and close into a customer. So if we take a look here at the attract stage of that internet marketing or inbound marketing method, you can see blogging is a key component of bringing in those strangers and attracting them to your website. So why is blogging important? Blogging is important because there are strangers out there on the internet who have questions that they're going to search for. You just need to be there. When they do that search, you need to make that information available to answer their questions or help solve their problems. So as an example of that, you might think, if I want to buy a cell phone, I'm probably not, I could just go to Google and type in cell phones and start looking at pictures of cell phones, try to find one that I want to buy. But that's probably not how I'm going to shop for a cell phone. I would actually be more likely to maybe go to Google and type in Android versus iPhone. Or I might be less concerned about the phone specifically, more concerned about the network that it's on or the service that I'm going to get. So I might type in Sprint versus Verizon. Those are questions that I would have during the cell phone buying process that I'm going to be searching for. And there might be blog posts on the internet on specific websites that I could go to find those answers. So blogging is important because it allows you to answer those questions, be available when your prospects are searching for problems that they have. And then in addition to that, each blog post is also a distinct page on your website. And in general, every page on your website is going to rank for one keyword. So the more blog posts you have, the more keywords you have the opportunity to rank for, the more opportunities you have to be found by potential customers. And then finally, blogging is going to build brand awareness, thought leadership for your business. If somebody comes to your website, sees you haven't added any content in the last 2 years, that's not going to really instill confidence in them that you can help them solve their problems. So blogging isn't just beneficial in all of these ways, it's also a necessity in some ways to prove to people coming to your website that you are the leader in the industry. So going back to the title of today's webinar, Triple Your Website Traffic with Your Company Blog, we wanted to give you a couple examples of real business blogs who have actually done this and been successful. And then we'll get into how we've been able to do that, and then ways that you can replicate it for yourself. So here we have an example actually of WebAscender's blog traffic. And you can see back in fall of 2013, and prior to that, we were really only blogging a couple of times per month. We didn't have a good blogging strategy in place, and our traffic was really flatlined. So you can see from month to month, there wasn't much change in the amount of traffic coming into the website. At that point where that pink line is there, that's when we started blogging instead of twice per month, twice per week. And you can see the effects almost immediately, that traffic growth that took off. And so over the last 2 years or so, our organic traffic to our website as a result of these blogging efforts has increased by almost 800%. Another example we have for you here, this is actually a client of ours that we've worked with. They previously didn't have any blog on their website, and you can see very stagnant website traffic from month to month, not many visits at all. When that pink line there hits, it did take some time to build up that traffic from those blog posts, but they went from no blog posts to 3 blog posts a month. And once that traffic did start to pick up, it really took off. It really took off at a good clip. So over the last about year and a half, 2 years, they've seen an 813% increase in their organic traffic to their website as a result of their blogging efforts. So now that we've seen some examples of actual real businesses who have been able to increase their website traffic by as much as 800% with a blog, you're probably asking, how can I do this for my business? And that's what we're going to get into now. So how can I be successful with blogging? There are really 6 areas that we're going to talk about for you to be successful with blogging for your business and generating traffic. I'm going to go through each of these in more detail, but here are the 6. First, you want to know your audience, know who you're writing for. You also want to be educational, informative, and unique in the content that you're providing. You want to make sure your blog is formatted properly, both for users and also for search engines. You want to be using calls to action in order to convert those readers. And you also want to promote your blog posts to amplify those efforts and get the most out of them. First, we're going to talk about knowing your audience. When we talk about knowing your audience, we usually are referring to personas or pictures of who your ideal customer or target audience would be. If you joined us for our last webinar, we dug into personas in some detail, but really, in order to bring in the right traffic to your website, you need to know who you're targeting. You need to know what questions or challenges they face that they would be searching for. And then you need to be writing content that's going to solve those problems, answer those questions, and move them through the buying process. Some of those questions that you might want to ask to uncover who your persona is would be, what's their role or their job title? What do they do in their daily life? what type of company do they work for, or industry organization they're involved with. What are their goals? What are they trying to accomplish on a daily or a weekly or a monthly basis? What challenges do they face in trying to accomplish those goals, and how can you help them? Also, where do they go to find new information? Those would be places that you might want to be if they're looking, researching information. You want to be where those watering holes are. And then you also want to know where they might, how they might go about a research process. So here's a template that you might use to outline all of that information as a starting point for coming up with topics that you might want to write about. This includes the background of your persona, their demographics, some key identifiers of like what their communication preferences might be, or how you can best talk with them, communicate with them, get in touch with them. What their goals are, challenges, how you as a company can help with those, and then what the most common objections are that they have when dealing with your company. In addition to knowing your audience, you also want to make sure the content that you're writing is going to be going to provide value to that persona. So you want it to be unique, you want it to be educational, you want it to be informative. The first step to doing that is really just knowing your audience, knowing your buyer personas and who you're targeting. A second facet of that is writing in general about your industry, addressing the questions, concerns, problems that your audience faces, and not really talking just about yourself. So a lot of businesses think that they can use a press release as a blog post. A press release is not a blog post. So press releases definitely have their place, but typically those aren't gonna answer questions or solve problems for your audience. They're not gonna be ranking in search results for the types of things that your target audience is searching for. And so they're not really a replacement for a blog. Another way to be educational and valuable in the content that you are providing is to really only cover one topic per blog post. If you are trying to cover too much in one post, Google might get confused as to what you're trying to rank for, and you might not be findable in search engines at all. And then you can also be overwhelming to the reader. If I have one question that I'm looking for right now, I want an answer for, and I go to a blog post that tries to answer 10 other different questions, it can be really difficult to go through and pinpoint the specific answer that I'm looking for at that time. So be specific and targeted about what you're writing about. Try to only cover one topic per blog post. And finally, you want to be consistent and frequent with the blog posts that you are writing. Samantha's going to get into a little bit later how frequently you should be writing, but just keep in mind that in order to be successful with blogging, you need to write consistently and you need to write frequently. The next way to be successful with blogging is to make sure that you're formatting your blog properly. So here I have an example of what that looks like. We as users of the internet, readers, we don't like to read a lot of times. So making sure that your blog post is easily scannable and that people can find what they're looking for is really important when it comes to being successful. You want to have a clear title or a clear headline for your blog post. That's going to help when people see your blog post in search engines to make them want to click on it. It's also going to help in social media. Somebody might see a topic, want to click on it there. And then having your keyword that you're focusing on as part of that title is going to help you to rank better in search engines as well. In addition to your title, you also want to make sure that you are including at least an image in every post. You want your blog to be visually appealing to users so that they actually want to read the content. Also, when that content gets shared on social media, you want to have a nice little image there that's going to get someone to click on it. I would say a minimum of one image definitely. Some blog posts are going to require more than that. So really, if you're trying to explain something that should have an image to help better explain it, include that. Don't stop at the one image. And then finally, in terms of scannability, make sure that you are incorporating subheadings, numbered lists, or unordered lists, and then bolding content that you want to stand out to readers so that they can easily scan and see what they're looking for. In addition to formatting your blog post for readers, like we just talked about, you also want to make sure that you're optimizing properly for search engines. So with SEO, a lot of times we talk about keywords, and sometimes that can be a little confusing for people. So if you're not familiar with what a keyword is, that's just anything that you would type into a search engine. So a keyword could be cell phone. A keyword could be iPhone versus Android for security. Both of those would be keywords, things I would type into Google, but they're kind of different types of keywords. So cell phones would be like a shorter keyword that you might search for. But typically with blogging, we would target what we call a long tail keyword, which is a longer phrase that's going to be typically 4 words or longer. And so the example of that I have here, if I'm looking to buy a cell phone, I probably, like I mentioned earlier, wouldn't just type in cell phones to Google, but something I might search for if I'm really concerned about the security of my information or my email. I might be curious how that compares from an iPhone to Android. So I could do a search, iPhone versus Android for security. Cell phones on its own isn't really a keyword that you would write a blog post about, but iPhones versus Androids for security, that's a very clear keyword that is relevant, searchable, and also a blog post topic that you could provide information on to somebody who's looking for that. So with each blog post, you want to find one long tail keyword that you are focusing on. You want to include that in the title of the blog post and also throughout the content. And finally, in terms of SEO for blogging, another way to get better indexed by Google and other search engines is to categorize your blog posts. So if we're going back to this cell phone example, some categories for a cell phone blog post might be technology, apps, and tutorials or how-tos. That's going to allow users to find relevant content based on category, and it's also going to provide some links between your content for search engines to better index. The next tip we have on how to be successful with blogging is to use calls to action on your blog. This isn't specifically for generating more traffic or tripling your traffic, but it's actually more related to actually getting something out of that traffic. So if somebody comes to your website, they're just going to be an anonymous visitor. They might really get a lot out of the blog post that they read, but you don't just want to leave them hanging and let them go back out to search results or another website and never see you again. So a call to action is a clear next step that you want your visitor to take. Oftentimes with a blog, these are going to be more education-focused calls to action, so a guide or a checklist or an ebook of some kind versus a call to action to request a consultation might be a little too hard of a sell for just a blog post. Here we have an example of an ebook. Download the Executive's Guide to Website Development. So if you're reading through a blog post on, is it time to redesign my website? This is a logical next step for somebody to take. They would click on that link, go out, fill out a form to download that guide. And finally, in order to be successful with blogging, you need to be promoting your blog posts. Some ideas for promoting your blog posts and generating more traffic would be sharing those blog posts on your company's social media accounts. Also, this depends on your industry, but when relevant, sharing on your personal social media accounts. You probably wouldn't share all your blog posts, your business blog posts on Facebook, but you might share them on Twitter or on LinkedIn. You can also email people directly who you think can relate well to your content. So if you have, maybe you're working on a sale currently, if you write a blog post that is relevant to that person, send them an email with a link. And then a final idea for promoting your blog post would be to include that content in a regular email newsletter, maybe monthly or quarterly, that you send out to all of your contacts. Get them excited about your content, provide value to them, and drive traffic to your website that way. So to recap, in order to be successful with blogging, you want to know your audience. You want to write unique and educational content. You want to format your blog properly for users. You also want to optimize your blog for search engines. You want to use calls to action to convert those visitors, and you want to be promoting your blog posts to generate even more traffic. And now you might be wondering, those are all great tips, but I really don't know what to blog about. So for that, I'm going to pass you off to Samantha, who's going to give you some ideas.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephanie. So yeah, now that you have the idea of the importance of blogging and how it can really affect your overall website traffic, and which in turn can turn into leads, we're just going to give you some ideas of what you can be blogging about. Because I think that's usually the biggest hurdle, is kind of like, what direction do I go? What do I have to share that will actually be of value to people? Or there are different structures you can kind of take when you are writing your blog posts. And here are a few of those. So let's pretend that you are a dental office, and obviously you offer dental services, and you want to target potential patients or re-engage your current patients. So one of the things you can do is just think about common questions that you get from customers. So for example, this could be something like, is Invisalign more expensive than braces? So you can actually write a blog post around that topic to address that and to target and reach those people in search engines. The other direction that you could take is addressing common objections that you get from your clients or potential clients. In this case, you could do something like why Invisalign is worth the expense, because some people might think that it's very expensive, so you could actually address why it's worth putting the money and the time and the resources into getting Invisalign. The next kind of structure that you can take with your blog post is doing a how-to blog post. This is actually one of our favorites because it really lends itself to easily writing an entire blog post about a topic. So you could do something like how to make teeth brushing fun for your kids. So addressing kind of a how-to structure will give people the idea that they can actually learn and get something of value from this blog post. Likewise, you could actually take an approach from a list structured type post. So this could be something like 20 tips to maintaining a healthy smile. Again, when people are searching in search engines and they see something, a blog post that has a number associated with it, it gives it automatic value. So they know that when they click on this, they're going to get 20 pieces of information that's of value to them. And it also makes it a lot easier for people to skim the post. Some other ideas too is, if you commonly give presentations or you recently gave a presentation, you can repurpose that content in a couple of different ways for blog posts. So you can actually repurpose the actual content of your presentation and turn it into a text blog post, or you could put it into more of like a slide deck format where you can embed it in your blog post and then just include the transcript, which will really provide the most SEO value for you there. And then the other option that we have on here that can be really helpful when you go to write blog posts is to do a curated post or resource. So just taking other people's research or their posts or things that they've created and kind of putting into a fresh new format can be an easy way to come up with a really great blog post. So now that you have some ideas of what you can be blogging about, you're probably thinking, gosh, well, how often do I have to blog to actually get the value that they're talking about? So let's just dig a little deeper here. Hubspot actually does a lot of research on this, and what they found is that companies that blog 15 or more times per month actually get 5 times the traffic that companies that don't. So that's pretty drastic, but let's just you're probably thinking, gosh, 15 posts, that's a lot. Like, how am I going to do that? So let's just break it down a little bit further. So first, what you want to think about is, what are your goals? So how fast do you want to grow? You have to determine how much traffic you want to get, how many leads you want to get, and that will help to determine how often you should be blogging. So if we take a look at this graph here, you can see the major difference just a number of blog posts can make in the amount of leads that could come into your website. So from 3 to 5 posts, there's a drastic difference. And obviously, once you hit 16 posts or more per month, the amount of leads coming into your website drastically changes. And you can see, just based on one of the examples that Stephanie gave about one of our clients that is just blogging 3 times per month, what a major difference that can make. So the good news is, if you're overwhelmed by this, you can just start small. And it's always a good goal to set towards 15 or more blog posts per month, but you don't have to start there. You can start with 1 per week or 1 every other week, and then you'll start seeing how that will affect your traffic. So now that you have some information on why blogging is important, how to do it, how to be successful at it, maybe some ideas of what to be blogging about and how often, we really want to set you up for success as much as possible. So we came up with some blogging resources that we think would be helpful for you as you start your journey of blogging more consistently and with a purpose. The first one here is, as Stephanie had mentioned before, the persona template. So she had shown you what that basically looks like, but we came up with a template that you can actually just kind of plug and play yourself. So we have all the information that's necessary to really identify your target audience. All you have to do is plug that information into these different areas like background, goals, challenges, and that will help you to better assess who you're trying to target and write more effective blog posts in the future. The second one we have here is a content ideas worksheet. So this thing is pretty cool. So basically what you want to do with this is start with the idea column. So whenever you think of an idea that you think would make a great blog post, or maybe you're on the phone with a client and they asked a question that you're like, well, I commonly get this question, this would make a great blog post, you can plug that right into this section here. So then when you have a little more time, you can move over to the possible title section or column, and you can turn that idea into a more concise blog title. So something that's kind of taking those formats that we just talked about, like a how-to format or a list format, and repurposing it into a title that someone would actually search in a search engine. And you also, of course, want to make sure that you're incorporating a specific keyword or keyword phrase. And that's where you want to plug that into the primary keyword column there, just to make sure that you're going to be writing a very focused blog post about something that would actually be of value to someone or your target audience. So then finally, when you get a little bit more time, you can actually do a little research around that topic and actually find out, are people actually searching for this information or this topic? The best way that we like to do this is using the Google AdWords keyword research tool. So what you can do is you can go into that tool and plug in the actual primary keyword you have in that column and just see how many people are actually searching around that topic on a monthly basis. So then once you have some time and you're ready to write a blog post, you can come back to this worksheet and just select your topic right away. It's also helpful when you are writing the blog to make sure that you're incorporating that keyword throughout your content to get the most SEO value. The third resource here is a blogging checklist. So checklists are awesome. We use them for just about everything, and specifically for blog posts. So this blogging checklist just helps you to make sure that you are focused on who you're trying to reach, what topic you're trying to address, and what you want them to do next. So this is helpful just to make sure that you touch on each of those points as you go through writing your blog post. And the last one here is an editorial calendar. So we talked a little bit about how it's important to consistently and frequently be blogging and how that can change the amount of traffic and leads that you get. But the hardest part sometimes is just managing that. So that's where this editorial calendar comes in. So for us, we actually kind of repurposed this document here and put it into Google Calendars. So the great thing about this is our whole team is involved in writing. So this allows us to make sure that we know who's going to be writing when and what they're going to be writing about. So Google Calendar is great because it gives you reminders, but this is also a great template to work off of if you are just doing it yourself and maybe one other person, just knowing whose turn it is within the month to write the blog post. So that's all of the information that we have about blogging. Obviously, there's so much you can do with it and so much to learn, but just taking these tips and tools is going to really help you get on the track for really multiplying the amount of traffic coming to your website. So at this point, we'll just take some questions. It looks like we have some questions that came in. All right. So one question that came in from Elizabeth was, how should I decide what to blog about? And this is a great question. It kind of goes back to starting with the persona. So you first want to just know who you're trying to reach, and then start thinking about a customer that you have currently that fits that persona. Think about the different questions that they've had or objections, and then use that to create blog topics for yourself.
Next question we have, I can never get into the rhythm of blogging consistently. Do you have tips? So I think there are probably a couple of reasons that might be. Maybe too many distractions, or you don't know. Oftentimes I think that is a result of not knowing what to write about. But if you think back to like that editorial calendar that Samantha had gone over, one way to make sure that you are consistently blogging is to really schedule those out in advance. Know not just when your blog post is due, but maybe a week or two before your blog post is due, have a deadline for I need to pick my topic by this date, and then maybe a couple of days before your actual blog post is due, I need to have an outline of everything that I'm going to include in that blog post, or I need to have a rough draft in place for someone to review. And having dates set for every step in that process can help to improve kind of the rhythm and the consistency of that, versus just saying, I need to have a blog post done on this day, sitting down that day to write that blog post, and then other things come up, or that kind of thing. So that would be what I'd recommend. The next question we have, what is your preferred blog setup? And WordPress, I guess, is kind of the question. So I'm guessing there you're going after what type of content management system maybe to use with blogging. So WordPress definitely has some benefits with blogging. Really, it's going to depend on your website and the type of content management system that your website uses. WordPress is great because it's almost kind of universal for a lot of websites. It's going to be a lot of websites going to be built on WordPress and be able to use that. So people tend to be trained on it, but it's really going to depend on what platform your website is built on and what those capabilities are. All right.
All right, we're just checking our questions here.
All right, next question here. Do you have any tips on contacting others to do guest blog posts? So I think the question here is probably to get other people to contribute to your own blog. So there are a couple things you can do. There's one website, actually. I think it's called myguestblog.com. Double checking that this is, I can't, there's a website forum out there where people can post, I need a blog on this topic, and I can't find the exact name of it right now, but I'll follow up with Ruth, I'll tweet at you when I nail it down. But that would be one option, would be to post in a forum asking if anyone would be willing to contribute. Oftentimes they're going to ask for a link back to your website for that. So that would be one option. Also, I just recommend contacting people in your industry. LinkedIn could be a good source for that. If you join groups on LinkedIn that are relevant to your industry, you might have some success that way.
Yeah, it looks like we have another question here. Question comment. She said, I can never get in the rhythm of blogging consistently. Do you have any tips? So this kind of goes back to some of these templates that we have. The very first thing I would say is put it on your calendar. That has been the biggest thing in driving us being successful at actually blogging regularly. Otherwise, it's easy to get busy. Everybody's busy. You have a million tasks that you're doing, especially if you own your own business or you're trying to market a business. It's most important just to put it on your calendar. Also, always think back to your goals. If you want to achieve your goals, you have to take the steps to be able to do that. And one of the ways you're going to do that here is by blogging. So think about your goals and put it on your calendar. I would say those are the two most important things that you can do.
Good, yeah, good tip. Next question, what is the best proof that my blog posts are effective? So that's a really good question. Reporting is something we didn't actually get into at all today, but definitely a key component of blogging. So this is also going to depend on goals with your blogging, but typically we would set up some reporting tool. Google Analytics is a great one. You can set that up on your blog and then log in and know what blog posts are getting the most traffic and how your traffic is improving over time. So those, if you think back to the examples we had of WebAscender and another client, those were actually results taken from Google Analytics. So that would be one place that you would want to make sure you have that reporting set up, and then also refer to that for how your blogging is doing over time. You can also use a tool called Google Webmaster Tools, and that will allow you to, you'll need to verify your website with Google, but you can log in and see what keywords you are ranking for in Google and where you're ranking for those keywords. And that will give you an idea of improvements in your blogging efforts over time, specifically with Google as a search engine. Let's maybe wait a minute or so here, see if any other questions come in.
Well, very good questions, though. And if you think of something later on, you're like, gosh, I really wish I could have asked this, feel free to still tweet us with the hashtag or just email us at the im@webascender.com. We're always checking that, and we'll definitely make sure that we address your question as soon as we can.
All right. So it seems like that is going to be all the questions for today. Like Samantha said, you can still email us or tweet at us if something comes up, or if you're rewatching this webinar tomorrow or later on, you can still ask us a question that way. So what is next? Just want to let you know, mark your calendars for our next webinar. It'll be on July 28th, same time, Thursday at 11 a.m. And we'll be covering what is marketing automation, kind of the next step in our inbound marketing webinar series. So we hope you can join us then. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out either via email, via Twitter, and we hope you all have a great day.